Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Rethink ABA Startup Community webinar. We sincerely apologize for the issues that we had a couple weeks ago, but we are back for round two, and I am joined today by Dr. Nick Green, who is Rethink's product manager of data analytics and also founder and CEO of BehaviorFit. Nick started BehaviorFit in 2015 as a behavior analytic approach for solving fitness and overall health problems. And he has previous experience working with individuals diagnosed with developmental disabilities and working within organizations to evaluate and improve processes, managing and overseeing training of small teams. He received his master's degree from Florida Tech in organizational behavior management, and we are really excited to have him today join us and talk about why all startups need to know about behavioral systems analysis and pinpointing behavior. Just a couple quick things before we get started. My name is Erin Mayberry, and I am Director of Community Engagement here at Rethink. We are going to be putting a lot of links and things like that into the chat to give you some access to what Rethink is, access to what BehaviorFit is if you want to check out Nick's other company. So if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the questions pane as we go. And if we have time at the end, we will get to as many of those as we can. And I know that Nick has a few polls and questions for you guys, so we are encouraging your active participation and really looking forward to everything that Nick has to say. So again, Nick, thanks so much for joining us, and I will turn it over to you.
Wonderful, thank you, Erin. First and foremost, thank you to everybody who attended the first time and came back. Really appreciate that, and welcome. Thank you for all the people that maybe attended just the first time here for this topic. So I have a lot to cover, and I'm excited to dig into it. So today, you know what we're going to talk about by the title, but just to scratch the surface a little bit more here is that I'm a behavior analyst. You'll see that throughout here. So what we're going to talk about is just how I think about using behavioral strategies more applied to the business setting. Now, today we're going to focus on the business of education and school, and think about how we can leverage the science for those outcomes, business results, etc. And we're going to just see how we can use the science as it applies to these settings. You know, today it's just an informational webinar. It's not a substitute by any means for a thorough assessment and analysis, but it should give you a couple stepping stones, a couple pieces to think about when it comes to, you know, the business, maybe the department you're in, what functions you maintain at your company. And, you know, of course, we're going to introduce some key concepts, hopefully something new. You know, that'll be the value add of attending this webinar to help really just enhance some type of decision making or type of decision you need to make in your practice. So today, if you leave this webinar with two things, I want you to leave with these two learning objectives, and that'll be identifying 3 levels of behavioral systems analysis and differentiating between and understanding the value between pinpointing a behavior and a result when it applies to some type of your business or your job. So those are the 2 key pieces that I hope to leave you with today if I do my job here when it comes to being a good, effective webinar speaker. So a little bit about me, just a quick rundown. You can kind of read for yourself. Erin gave a nice intro. My role here at Rethink is really in charge of looking at how we can use data analytics to help us with enhanced decision making, whether it's on the clinical side, maybe the practice management side. That's going to be my general role here at Rethink. And as Erin described, these are just my various you know, professional interests here: behavior analysis, OBM, and exercise. So I've been in the field for some time now, since 2009 into some capacity. Been a BCBA since 2015, and graduated from those lovely universities there. So, you know, why am I here today? I work for Rethink, but really at the end of the day, my passion is to use the science of human behavior to make our lives better at work, right? Work, there's a lot of many workplace variables that are helping us be effective in the workplace, or maybe that are hindering us, right? We can all think of all kinds of things. One popular workplace variable that affected all of us was, right, the COVID-19 pandemic, right? That affected school, life, work. And so understanding how we can use the science of human behavior can help us, you know, have a better day on the job. And specifically in my interest, I love to use, you know, the latest tools and technology to enhance those decisions to help us have that good day in the workplace. So for me, just you learned a little bit about me, and so we can get to know each other here. So we got 40 people in the room. If you could please go ahead and answer in the chat where are you located? So if you are in the United States, please type in your city and state. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana. My answer would be like that. If you're not in the United States, go ahead and type in your city and country. I'll go ahead and peek at the answers here. So go ahead and type in the answers, and I'll look at the chat here so we know where everybody's from. Am I seeing some answers here, Aaron, or am I missing them? I have the chat pulled up.
Most people are answering in the questions. If you want to pull that one up, I see
Oh,
a lot of California, gotcha. New York, North Carolina, Ohio,
Missouri. Got it. Pull this down. Good. Like Mary, Jacksonville, Derry, Ireland. I put in Dublin. I don't know how close Derry is to Ireland. Good. Long Island, Charlotte, Massachusetts, Miami, Florida. Good. California. Sorry, no chat option on the phone. That's all right, Elise. Atlanta, Georgia. Good. All across the country. I remember last time we had somebody from Australia. Let's see, any Australia, Phoenix, Arizona. Good. So we got everybody in all time zones across the country. So thank you for that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and use a poll here. How long has the business that you've worked at, if you're an ABA company, how long have you been in business? And I'm going to use a poll here. So you're going to answer A, door's not open yet. B, less than 1 year. C, more than 1 year. Or D, not a business owner. All right, answers are coming in. 50% voted. Very good. 69%. Thank you, everybody. We're at 71%. When we get a little bit more, 74% have voted. All right, maybe a couple more. 76%. Thank you. All right, so we're going to, I'll go ahead and close the poll and share the results. All right, so we had 52% not a business owner, 21% more than a year, 18% less than a year, 9% not open yet. So that gives us a good feel of how long we've been in business. Thank you, everybody. All right. All right, so now, depending on where you are, right, in the decision-making process, when you think about running your business, wherever you are, right, there's a lot of pieces, there's a lot of things going on, right? As a business owner, as somebody that's maybe a leader in your organization, really it's about bringing clarity to what are those pieces from a behavior-based point of view. How can we make progress going forward with whatever business outcome or results that we want? So, no matter where we are in our company, we're faced with a lot of decisions. A lot of things that are prioritized, reprioritized. It's the beginning of the year. That has an effect on how we are planning, road mapping, looking at the end of the quarter, looking at certain deliverables, a lot of decisions to make. And really, if we are business owners, if we are leaders in our business functions, then we are tasked with making decisions on a day-to-day basis. And so for us, for those of us that are business owners or hold some type of leadership position, you don't have to be a leader by any means to answer this next question, but go ahead and answer in the chat and the questions again. What is your biggest concern right now when it comes to thinking about decisions you have to make in the next quarter or two? I'll go ahead and scroll down. So if you go ahead, management around staffing, thank you, Kate. All right, what are your other concerns? Effectiveness of process, good, Abby. I like that one. We're going to talk a lot about process today. Get a couple more people to type in. What are your biggest concerns right now? So far we got staffing management, marketing, good, transitioning to new roles, letting clients know, turnover, patient engagement, yep, failing, standardizing processes and procedures, thank you, Jessica, partnership development, good, marketing, hiring, getting referrals, no staff turnover, right? No turnover, fantastic. Management, answers are coming in. Time management, wonderful. Making progress. Nice. So yeah, a lot of themes around effectiveness of process, standardizing, creating those SOPs, staff management, very important, right, when it comes to working with our learners in a business setting, academic setting, brick and mortar type therapy setting. So very good. Those questions will definitely help kind of garner and facilitate the discussion moving forward here. So about OBM, just in general, when it comes to OBM, just as a kind of a framework, if you've never heard about it before, OBM, like I talked about in the intro, it's the science of human behavior. Yes, there's a science, a natural science, if you will, of the practice applied to the workplace. So that's important because, right, it's unique in the fact that it takes an experimental approach to solving workplace problems as opposed to, maybe theory-based or other approaches like that. So you have a scientific approach to figuring out how can we practically measure variables in the environment, and conceptually, there's really two pieces when it comes to thinking about OBM in practice. You have really one part is behavioral systems analysis, and then performance and management. BSA being that high level macro approach, which I'll spend a good amount of detail on today, and then performance management, working with the employees, the staff, to help them remain engaged and do the things that we need them to do, right? And then applies to our own behavior. If you start looking into OBM, you may come across Aubry Daniels. Some call him the godfather of OBM, so go ahead and check out his work. And there are some key texts when it comes to looking at all the material that I'll show today. References at the end here, but you have The Paradox of Organizational Change, right? You want to make some change, but it's difficult, by Maria Malat. Very good conceptual book. Improving Performance by Rumler and Braish. That's the yellow book right there. Performance Management. That's a good copy you should have on your desk if you work directly with staff. And then, of course, the Journal of Organizational Behavior Management, the academic, the research side of OBM. So that's a little bit about setting the stage here for what is OBM and how it applies to the workplace. So two strategies I want you to have right in your back pocket when we move forward thinking about business settings is strategy number one, using a systematic approach to solving some type of workplace problem, and that is behavioral systems analysis. Hong asked, we'll get a copy of the slide. Yep, I think we can set up some PDFs after the call. Thank you, Hong. So for me here, when we think about behavioral systems analysis, this is my working definition. You read a bunch of academic definitions, you come up with your own. This one is mine. So we got BSA is a macro level framework, big picture, the visionary picture that allows you to analyze the connections in your business, how things work together to drive meaningful behavior and results. We're going to hit on behavior towards the end and results at the end, but we'll see how everything works together to achieve what we want to achieve. I think everyone in the room here, right, Rethink makes a product for the education and therapy-based service setting. So the results we want to see our kids and learners better off because we've worked with them, right? Improvements in school, good life transitions, etc. So looking at this big framework, right? Something that's important that's beyond the scope of this talk is, right, identifying what your mission is, what your scope of practice is, those business and clinical objectives. But it's important to describe that, right? Assuming that we have all of these pieces aligned, that, right, we have top-down alignment working with the bottom up, right? If a company is just interested in money, you're going to have some disconnect between what maybe the employees want to do. If the employees are only interested in money and maybe the top brass, the executives aren't interested in making money, then you're going to have some rub there. So making sure things are in alignment is going to be critical to a lot of the work that we'll discuss today. But just wanted to hit on that because that's going to be a key component to much of what you see here. Everything needs to be in alignment. Jessica says, timing of this webinar is perfect. We started strategic planning. Awesome. And yes, we'll hook you guys up with the slides at the end. All right, this picture here, very important. We're thinking about behavioral systems analysis. When I first learned this kind of hierarchy as a student, this for me was my aha moment. I'm like, oh, this is great. It makes sense. This is, I really wanted to learn more. So maybe the OBM bug will bite you here. So there are 3 levels when it comes to thinking about our business or organization. We have the operations level, we have a process level, a lot of discussion of process here in the questions, and the performer level, right, the employee level. So we got organizational, process, and performer. Now, starting with organizational, what we're looking at here is it provides visibility on your business, your organization as a functioning system, and identifies how your business is operating, right? Function here is the key kind of component. Maybe there's some right? We can think about like, well, my system isn't working very well. Regardless if it's not working well, efficiency of processes was a comment earlier. Think about how they work together, and then how can we make them better, right? And we see how the business operates in the context of a larger setting. So what you do is, as you go through these strategic planning sessions, you're going to map out, you're going to draw these related systems, inputs, outputs, and different environmental variables, just at a general high level. The books that I described earlier go into very much more detail, but I can only give you so much here in the next 35 minutes. So here we go. What you're going to begin doing, again, thinking about why we need the strategy. What does it mean for our business here? We're going to create something called a super system map. That's language that comes from these books. So you think about everything in the business environment, right? As a behavior analyst, I'm always thinking about how the environment affects what we do when it comes to business, life, play, all those things. So our business, our operations here is the bread and butter. It's what we do. Now, what influences our business? Different environmental variables. Competition in the workplace, right? There's probably 100 practitioners just down the street from you that are starting up their own business. Market demand. There's a high need for services. There's a workforce. Staff turnover, right? Do we have enough staff? Do we have enough? Do we have enough staff, or are we short of staff? Right. That's going to affect how well we can service the demand. What kind of experience do we have? All of these are going to feed into some type of input system. This is where we do our work. And at the end of the day, we always have to be mindful that we're providing some type of product or service, right? Oftentimes in this therapeutic setting, it's a service that's provided to customers as an output, maybe parents, school professionals, other settings, but you get the idea, right? Our business is in the middle. We have inputs and outputs, and we're providing some type of valuable service. And over time, right, we gather feedback, we make our service better, and we iterate through. The better we do this, the more lives we change, the longer we stay in business, right? All right, so that is the first step, building the super system map at the high level. And the next step here is, now we need to think about our business. What's happening in our business? How do we strategize what to do? So we need to break down the business operations, right? So how many functions, now we changed operations to functions here. We build a relationship map. So what drives our products and services? At a high level, we may have these departments within our business. We have an HR department, clinical, operations, finance, sales. We can start drawing arrows, right? We'll see a lot of arrows today. Finance is going to affect clinical. Finance, we're going to pay for recruiting for folks to start working with clinicians. Operations are important. Sales and marketing, right? We're selling services. Could be private pay here. So think about which functions do we need to think about. Maybe there's something that doesn't apply to your business. Maybe operations doesn't need a separate function. Maybe there's an additional one here. Again, this is a generic map for education, demonstration purposes here. But the next step is we take the functions and now we think about what makes up each of these functions. So we have within HR, we have recruiting. That's a separate kind of sub-process or function. Recruiting is going to drive onboarding to some degree, right? We recruit 100 people, only 75 showed up. 75%, show right. Okay. Onboarding is important because let's start removing these bricks. What's happening in clinical? We have to train those people. Do the clinical folks take that on? We have to supervise those people. The consultants are a part of that supervision process. There's therapy happening. There's treatment occurring. We need professional development. We can't just learn everything day one, and we need to be a forever learner, right? Clinical operations. Maybe you have operations folks dedicated in your organization. Are you scaling? Are you thinking about expansion? Is that important? That's going to affect clinical, right? You have to start thinning the herd, if you will. You got maybe 5 BCBAs, 5 teachers in one setting. Now you got to break them up into 3 and 2. What does that look like? But you start seeing here how each of these sub-functions start affecting each other, right? Do we have enough money to pay people? No, we can. Okay, what happens there? We can't provide as much therapy. On and on, right? You got marketing, email, webinar, social media. In my opinion, it's like if you don't have social media today, that's where people live. You're kind of missing the boat. Is that a marketing chip that you're missing from your strategy? Sales, right? Demo training. I put that in here for today's demonstration purposes. So you start at the high level, you super system. Now we start building the relationships. Next step, right? Now we can start looking at an example here, right? So it's still a little abstract, but I think maybe for today's purpose, we could look at Rethink, right? We build a super system that is Rethink. So this is really no secret. The Rethink behavioral health product here, right? That's a product. We're selling software to consumers, right? That's the product there, and it's going to benefit some type of ABA provider for kids, right? But what are the environmental variables that are going to affect, how much we sell software? Software competition. Rethink is not the only game in town. What available talent do we have? Do we have the best engineers? Do we have the best webinar presenters? Do we have the best directors of communication like Aaron Mayberry? Do we have a high demand of ABA services? No secret here, if there's no demand for ABA services, that could dry up some revenue there, and maybe Rethink has to pivot. Again, just as an example, a variable that's going to affect the entire life cycle of the system that is Rethink Behavior Health. And plus, we have a lot of experience, a lot of seasoned professionals, senior VP up the board, right? We have a big depth chart when it comes to leadership. So this is, right, for Rethink, hopefully this helps kind of paint the picture. This is how you use a super system map to then look at, a high level product. We could start breaking it down again to, right, the relationship map here with Rethink. Again, this webinar and software sales. I just highlighted again, I moved some functions around, but this webinar, here we are live right now. This is part of, I would put this under the marketing arm, right? The marketing function. There is a startup community function. There's email, the social media, blog. And so maybe my KPI is how many software demos come out of Rethink webinar here today. But again, you have all these different functions: clinical, subject matter expertise, product development, finance, right? You need sales, increases revenue, could increase talent to help this machine here. So just an example, you can kind of start seeing, right? If we're interested in selling software, how does that affect, or how is that affected by our marketing strategy? Does that matter? Hopefully it does. I imagine it does. But again, just another example to see how we start breaking things down. So this is the organizational level. Again, drawing those pictures, mapping out the functions, and moving forward. So the next level in behavioral systems analysis is now process. We start looking at these pieces here, breaking those down. So we have business operations. Now we're at the process level. The process level. So we need to really identify what processes. We need to understand the context of how tasks, maybe subtasks, processes, processes are completed. And again, you're going to do a lot of drawing here, a lot of sketching. I have a whiteboard right here. You can just sketch up different ideas. But it's valuable because even if you're tasked, as yourself individually, or you're working with a team, it's going to give you visibility on the number of steps, what the best practice is. You can start seeing inputs and outputs. I'll give you an example here momentarily, and you can, at the end of the day, you want to identify opportunities for improvement, or maybe everything is humming along just nicely, and just having that baseline understanding is good enough for right now, right? It's kind of amazing how easy it is to once you give something a label by saying like this is the marketing function or this is the social media strategy. Once you start labeling things and putting boxes together and putting them on the screen, like in a PowerPoint presentation, using software like Microsoft Visio, when you're on a virtual team in person, everybody can kind of direct and orient to like, oh, this is the way it is. It allows you to be on the same page of like what's happening in the business. So process, personally, I love the process because it brings both the macro level and the individual level together in one setting, and you can really start getting feedback up and down the stream. So I love this. This is what I love to do. So looking at the processes as an example here, we're going to switch gears and look at completing a therapy note. Could be completing a teacher's note, whatever you call it in your organization. If you call it something else, do let me know. A session note, something that we call it. So specifically when you're looking at mapping out processes, this is the kind of standard kind of layout that you have when it comes to looking at different what's called cross-functional kind of maps here. So there's different functions, different folks, different roles, different job titles, different departments, whatever you want to look at. you look at different functions across these roles and moving left to right. It's like you're in a swimming pool. They're called swim lanes. So each role is going to have some type of activity to complete. So again, we're looking at that therapy note completion. So here's where we go. We're going left to right, but also, right, think about it as like an XY axis. I like to go, most of us read left to right, but you have kind of the different phases, periods of time. I selected these as kind of arbitrary time frames, but I think it makes sense for most of us. We have pre-session, what occurs before maybe a therapy appointment, what happens during therapy, and what happens at the end of the day. Maybe your organization uses different naming conventions, but those are just the general chunks, right? So if we start with scheduling, what is a step that is very important for anything to begin? The appointment has to be set. Seems silly, but putting it on the page is definitely helpful. Now we think about, okay, is that the scheduling department? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on your organization. For the patient now, the parent is notified of the appointment, okay? That all happens before the session. Next step, patient arrives to the therapy setting. Then there's a therapy session, and this box here purposefully goes over, crosses the line between therapist and patient, because that is a shared process, right? That typically you need a patient to engage in therapy. So you got therapy there with the therapist and patient, all good and done. Now, end of the day, maybe it's not the end of the day for your organization, but you need to complete some type of note, say that services were rendered, this is what we worked on. So the therapist writes the note, submits the note. Those are two separate tasks there, writing and submitting. Then the consultant here, it's more of a sub-process kind of a notation here, reviews the note. That's going to take a while, right? How does that, what do you need to check off there? Is the note approved? Oftentimes you see these diamonds on these process maps and say, if it's a yes, right, the note goes to billing. What does that look like? There you could create a whole nother swim lane for billing. If it's not, is the note kicked back to the therapist to write the note again, right? That could be a very simple process. If you're in this type of therapy note situation, setting, function, you can think about, hey, does this map on to what I do every day? Does something need to be moved? Maybe it's not the end of the day. Maybe it needs to be within 10 minutes of the end of the session. Whatever it looks like, mapping it out, you can start seeing the value here of moving step by step to think about, how does our business run? How do these processes all work together? So now the next question is this. What opportunities are there within this process? I'm going to take a drink of water. I want to set this one up as a question here, so answer in the chat. So if we're looking at the map, are there any opportunities here that you see that maybe, let's say things aren't going right, or maybe missing some things? What do you see in this map that maybe could be improved, or things that you may ask about if you're in your strategy session? Go ahead and reply in the text there. Jessica asked, while you're typing your answers, what did you call this type of diagram? This is called a cross-functional flow chart or cross-functional process map. Yep, sorry, cross-functional chart. Yep, so go ahead. If you see anything that you would improve, you see any opportunities here, maybe you're thinking about metrics. I'm kind of giving you some prompts here. Go ahead and type anything that you would see in this process. Supervision, okay, good, yeah. That is a very important function in that, right? So do you fit supervision here? Do notes occur, or do they slow things down? Parent training's good, I like that. Right, you put a parent training in there. Data entry, very good, Jessica. Where does data entry go? Is that at the end? Is it during the session, right? You might break this section down a little bit, letting the parent know how the day went. Good, yeah. So this here, again, I kind of focus on writing the note, but you can start plugging this into other pieces too. Good, thank you. All right, so what I looked at, if we're looking at this from a process perspective, last one here by Jessica, sharing the session notes with families, good. Yep, how do you kick that over? Maybe that's a different path completely. Yep, related, could be the same there. Just depends on like what are those results, what outcomes you're looking for. Is it improved parent communication, right? That's a whole different kind of strategy, right, webinar there. But something I think about when we're looking at how do we start measuring certain processes. Scheduling, are these appointments, are they set on time, right? Did the parent have enough time to know that there was an appointment change? Something simple like that. Yep, cancellation, good, huh? If you're looking at cancellations, right? What is that cancellation percentage? Looking more at the patient level, this may be more of like a parent feedback function of how often does the parent arrive on time? Behaviorally, what happens when we arrive on time? Most of the time, nothing, right? Kid goes to therapy. Well, what happens when they're late? Oh, there's a whole trickle-down effect, right? All kinds of variables happening there. But if we're looking at measuring and improving performance, we'll look at that piece. Reviewing the notes, writing the notes. Do the notes meet your quality standards, whatever that is for? Maybe insurance purposes, school purposes, academic purposes, personal preference, right? We're often developing talent in the field. Do these notes meet your standards? Maybe a therapist wrote 10 notes. Quality is not great. How do we give them feedback on improving that quality of note writing? When are they submitted? Maybe they wrote the perfect note, but just didn't submit it on time. How do we remedy that? Right, and so all of these pieces here, the last one here, how many notes are submitted each day? We start looking down. Now there's a lot of questions we can ask. We can slap a few measures on here to understand. Oh, we have 6 KPIs right here, key performance indicators that are going to help us understand: are we leveraging the right behavior? Are we following the right results? How does that help us drive the patient outcomes that we want? All right, so a lot that goes in here, right? Every box could be a whole new set of questions. So, I want you to reflect, right, on your own work environment here. Are all your business functions clearly defined, right? We have the super system map, the relationship map. Is everything in there, right? Do you notice any disconnects between functions and processes? Within each function or sub-function, which processes run well as we start putting our boxes together, or which ones need improvement? How do we start measuring those pieces, and so forth? Jordan comments, I was also thinking before, like in this model, it's like a process of standard of quality of care, how things are every day. Yep. So yeah, I think, Jordan, you're kind of hitting on, you have, right, something that was common earlier was our standard operating procedure. Kind of a layer, lecture 2 of process mapping would be, there's actually 2 kinds of process maps. There's a is map and a should map. This is how things is or are, the grammar is kind of funny there. This is the way the process is today, the current state. So you map that out, and then maybe you, as another exercise, you say, this is what it should look like. So at the end of the day, you could have 2 different maps. Maybe the one I showed you here was an is map. There are 12 steps of the process, and maybe through the process of strategy and discovery, we understand that, oh, we should have 15 because we didn't account for parent communication and 2 other steps, right? So you have always a pairing there of is versus should. So fair comment there, Jordan. So that is the process level within BSA. The next, third and final level, which is going to tie to the performance management piece, is the performer level, right? The performer is going to be the driver of the processes that add up to the operations piece. So so for the performer level, Alyssa's got to go. Thank you, Alyssa. This maybe here gets more towards, the common, what we talk about in behavior analysis, applied behavior analysis, kind of that ABC analysis, the antecedent behavior consequence, right? We have the behavior performance in the middle here. In business terms, we might think about inputs and outputs. But again, there has to be some type of input for me to do some type of task. And when I'm done with that task, there will be some type of output and other consequences as well. So analyzing at the individual level is super important, because think about that session note again one more time, that process. We need to analyze the inputs and outputs of that session note. So what are the inputs that go into, that are going to drive that exemplary performance that you want to see? So to write a session note, right, the session note maybe needs to be complete, right? You can't start writing the note until the session is over. There needs to be a note template ready, right? Rethink has software that everything works on an iPad or Android device. The template has to be up and ready and working, right? That's probably a interesting kind of piece there, that Rethink needs to be a stable software solution. So whenever that therapist needs to write that note, it's ready to go right away. And If Rethink was not that that variable there, then probably people would take their business elsewhere, right? That's how the world works. You also need adequate training. So does that person know how to write the note? Is the device charged? We've all been there, ready to pick up the device. It's dead, can't write the note. Then they have a downstream effect of late notes being rushed, things like that. And maybe something that's important here to drive the exemplary performance is having a quiet room, right? The chaos of school, therapy, very loud, all kinds of things happening. If we get those inputs correct, most of the time, what's going to be the output? The output is going to be some type of submitted note. Other circles in ABA, applied behavior analysis. Sometimes we talk about permanent products, something that is an artifact, a result of engaging in what? A lot of behavior. This submitted note here is that output. So that's good. We got the permanent product, but now taking it a step farther with the behavioral lens is we have to think about what other consequences accompany these type of outputs. Maybe you're familiar with some, maybe all of them, but the key here is maybe putting it, understanding how the behavior and consequence relationship happens together. So maybe upon submitting a note, this is a super important one, and you get a thank you email from a parent or a supervisor. Another consequence is an updated metric, maybe a key performance indicator for that RBT therapist. Hey, you need to make sure all your notes are submitted on time. We have this dashboard for you. And now this therapist, that teacher, the caseworker can get access to those data. The research shows us that access to data and metrics do sometimes drive behavior, so that's important to look at as well. Maybe the consultant recognizes that therapist, like, hey, thank you, it's your first week, you got your note done, first time, no problem. And there's another consequence of, right, it's the end of the day, I got to write 4 notes, I got 1 less, right? That's a nice negative reinforcer, if you will. A task is removed, and that helps drive behavior. So those consequences, there's a lot of work to go into there when it comes to the performance management side. But again, you start seeing how the performer, as it fits into one of those writing the note, right, that one step here of that process, there's still a lot more that can be broken down into the inputs, outputs, and those behavioral consequences. That's just one step of the process, the session note. When you start working with everything taken in consideration, kind of the theme here, working with that session note, is think about, are our systems aligned? Are they talking to each other when it comes to top to bottom? To stay in business, we need 20 notes per day to stay in business, right? There's maybe some people don't like talking about the business side of therapy or education, but you have to get some type of revenue in the door. Oftentimes it's insurance, and there needs to be some type of steady stream of notes, right, to be on average to keep the doors open, right? So at the high level, we got to keep the notes going. At the process level, maybe we identified 4 different functions that involve 12 different steps that help make sure that those notes then are aligned with producing those 20 notes per day, right? And then at the individual level, what we just hit on is that we need consistent inputs to complete the task, right? Think about if our iPads are always dead, that's a problem. If the session notes are always running over, that's a problem. If we think about what was another one? Having a quiet room, right? If all of those inputs aren't consistent, we can expect some type of variability, if you will, differences in trying to get all the steps completed to producing those 20 notes per day, right? The world is messy and chaotic and not a research paper by any means, but just thinking about how we can keep these variables consistent should help drive everything as long as they are in alignment. All right, check for understanding, make sure people are still attending. Just kidding, I know you're all still there. We still got 47 in the room. All right, what are the 3 levels in BSA? I've been talking about a lot. Is it A, B, C, or D? I got 9% voted. So far, it's looking pretty good. 3 levels. Is it organizational people performer, organizational people pinpointing, organizational process performer, or organizational process pinpointing? One trick that I learned when I was in grad school, give shout out to the late great Dr. Jose Martinez Diaz that started the Florida Tech program. It's like, if we haven't talked about a concept when you're giving if you haven't talked about a concept in depth yet, it's probably not going to be part of the answer. So 61% have voted. We'll go ahead and click over. It looks like 3/4 of us have got it correct. We're going to close the poll. We got 15 minutes left. We're going to share the results. All right, and the correct answer is organizational process and performer. I did talk about pinpointing a little bit, but not in depth, and it's not a level. So the correct answer was C, organizational process and performer. So we got 63% of you voted, 76 correct. And we are doing good. All right. So we got a good 9-10 minutes here. That's going to let us get through the next couple slides on time. So to summarize the BSA section here, we get the organizational process performer levels, right? Macro process, who does the process? Obviously, I've spent a lot of time just even coming up with these kind of diagrams here today, but think about diagramming as a tool, getting on the whiteboard, using your Post-its, wherever you need to use them. And it just allows the team to be on the same page. I try to integrate a lot of my diagramming and planning into my own PowerPoints where I have our own styles, but use it as a tool. There's a lot to always consider. Again, prioritize, maybe start with your small, high priority items or tasks. Maybe that's a strategy session. Go ahead and look at what's my most important. Is it staffing? Is it session notes? Is it ongoing training? Is it making sure revenue is taken care of? Is it operations and expansion? Maybe rank, prioritize there, and then you can start diagramming and working forward after that. So at a high level, understanding BSA, I think, is foundational to understanding the second strategy here, which is pinpointing behavior and results. And that's going to speak to, right, that performer level, that individual task level. So when we think about the performer, the employees, whether it's frontline staff, all the way up to senior leadership, the CEO, the founder of the company, at the end of the day, this is what's most important, right? This is what's going to drive the results that we want, is going to drive the client outcomes that we want. It's behavior. Behavior is gold. That's the currency we can all be trading in, right? If it's, maybe we need to make behavior cryptocurrency or something, but it's how business, right? We got to say business in there for business owners, for selling software. It's how business and clinical work gets done. If we don't behave, if I don't make slides, no webinar happens. If I don't type notes on the computer, we can't get those shipped off. If I don't click the button to submit, we can't do the thing. So it's important to think about, as it is now before all the robots take over, bad technology joke. Hopefully we still got a good 100 years to engage in our human behavior. That's a topic for another day, but at the end of the day, behavior, behavior, behavior. Performance, what we do is important because that's how most of this work, right, gets done. So too many times, why is behavior important? Too many times we hear, oh, that therapist is just lazy, won't complete the notes. Okay, we've heard that before. This consultant is unmotivated to complete the report. They just don't care anymore. Okay, could be the case. My manager has a bad attitude. Today, all she says is just get it done. I don't care how you get it done, just get it done. Got a bad attitude. Okay, what does that look like? Well, when I'm thinking about things, I'm always thinking, I have that behavioral lens, that scientific tweak. Labels, when it comes to providing solutions, don't bring us closer to understanding those workplace variables. We've talked about a lot. We've talked about, right, adequate equipment. We have the right training in place. What other variables are hindering our work, right? My expertise outside of the business setting is in health and fitness and wellness. I often talk about, right, how well we feel today, how much energy we have, loosely speaking, right, is going to drive a lot of our effectiveness in the day-to-day. So, saying lazy, maybe not great. Maybe we could see practically, maybe the person is sleep deprived and, they aren't able to perform, something like that. But what we need to get to is something with more precision, and that is where we get into pinpointing. So pinpointing, it's just a different term for just really being precise about what you want to measure. Measurement is the key here, right? We can pinpoint both a behavior and a result, right? The behavior being something you can observe, right? It's measurable and it's reliable. Can you see it? Can you measure it? Can you quantify it in some way? And is it reliable? Can other agree that it happened? Using a easy health and fitness example, some type of pinpointed behavior is I can walk so many steps a day. Okay, great. If that produces some type of caloric deficit, likely what's going to happen is you're going to lose weight. Okay, the behavior is that we can see steps per miles run per day. Can you quantify it? We got Apple Watches. Can others agree that it happened? Yep. Oh, I see Nick, he's running around the pond over there. What are the results? Over time, we start seeing maybe weight loss, improved cardiovascular health, endurance, so on and so forth. Now, when we think about pinpointing in the workplace, behavior and results, right? How many webinars did you deliver? What was the result? X number of software sales. Behavior. What note did you write today? What is the result? Revenue on the bottom line, right? So you start seeing these pairings and being specific about separating the two can then start help you as a leader, as a manager, start being specific about what we want to look at. So if we get back to the therapeutic education setting, we think about lazy therapist Larry. Pinpointed behaviors, pinpointed results, right? Pinpointing is the key here. What can we pinpoint? What can we observe? Saying lazy doesn't really help anything, but we can identify, right? Is he opening the iPad storage closet? Sounds silly, but maybe he doesn't even know where the closet is to write the notes. He missed that in training. Write 3 sentences on a session note, okay? Lazy therapist, maybe he just didn't know he needed to write 3. That was the criteria. It changed. He didn't get the memo. Tap the submit button. Plug the iPad in the charger. All things that we can reliably see in the environment. Did he plug it in? And so forth. Now, what are the results associated with now good worker Larry's behavior? He gets a completed note, right? Maybe the iPad is charged, the note's submitted. We have a number of notes on time, number of notes meeting clinical standards. These pairings are important to separate and measure as unique opportunities because, right, we could engaging in all the behaviors that we want, but maybe it doesn't produce the results. Or vice versa, we could be getting all the results that we want, but maybe we're cutting corners and not engaging in the appropriate behaviors here. So looking at both of those, very important. So that's writing those therapy notes. Unmotivated Ursula, oh boy, we've all seen her, right? She's not turning those reports in. She's super unmotivated. She doesn't want to be here anymore. But what can maybe we begin pinpointing, maybe a professional repertoire for her to engage in the type of results that we want to see, right? We want to see those billed hours. I don't have it here. You want to see those completed reports, right? Does arriving to work on time help? Does organizing the desk help, right? She's cluttered. She got stuff everywhere. Does she need to file papers away in her filing cabinet? Is there some paper and pencil action there, right? Those behaviors hopefully then lead to those types of results of billed hours, scheduled hours, authorized hours. Maybe we discover quite quickly arriving to work on time gets you those scheduled hours like you need. And then we have, right, bad attitude Betty. I think we've all had some of those. Oh my goodness, she's just the worst. Well, what's your definition of the worst? Okay, well, she's just cussing like a sailor. A number of offensive words used, right? Number of positive statements, right? We don't want you to be offensive, but maybe use positive statements. I like your shirt today. I like the way that you handled the therapy session with the parent, right? Maybe we say that she's got a bad attitude because her door is always closed, right? Just, describing clear job expectations, clarifying the requests, and then what are the results that are going to be associated with these other professional behaviors, right? Maybe long-term, right? This is a super, what is called like a lagging indicator down the road. Employee retention, right? Positive interactions, those are immediate. Overall morale and company culture. I put a couple asterisks there. These are loose terms, but we can define them more behaviorally and with more precision. I just kind of added those here just for webinar purposes here. But so just think about, right, those results, immediate, long-term, right? How do all these behaviors result in these kinds of results? So pinpointing, super pivotal, separating the two when it comes to understanding the result here. So let's just take a little thought exercise, and then we just have a couple more slides and we're good to go here. But think about, right, how would you sell a car? As a car dealer, manager, do you emphasize behaviors only, results only, or behaviors and results, right? I'm kind of hedging my bets here, right? You're probably going to need behaviors and results, but think about like all these virtual car companies that have popped up, because why? Just the whole car buying, selling experience has been super aversive with people, because oftentimes, right, maybe the manager says, I just hit the sales number. I don't care what you do. So you get all the wacky guys and the balloons on the side of the road and come on in and we're going to give you all the fancy literature and do all this and that. They're engaging in all these behaviors that doesn't lead to some type of result of a sale, Or some people may just focus on the behaviors, and over time, right, create a nice environment. Can I get you a water? We get snacks in the break room over here. Let me roll out the red carpet for you, right? You have all those behaviors and results, those relationships. So you can think about, right, this clunker, $4,500. Hey, I don't think I would drive that. That's probably overpriced. But think about, cars. We pick on car salesmen a lot, but that's an easy example of like, what behaviors does the car salesman engage in just to get the result, or and vice versa. So at the end of the day, it's probably to pinpoint both the best behaviors, right? Being kind, helping them on the lot, doing those things that could lead to some type of result. And oftentimes I come from a service-based family myself, and when you take care of people, right, they take care of you, right, loosely speaking. So, but breaking it down like that is super helpful. So a quick check for understanding. This will be a toss-up here, super easy. All right, launch it. Pinpointing here. When pinpointing, behaviors and results should be in alignment. True or false? 33%, 35%. We're all hitting it out of the park. We're all hitting it out of the park, right? 51% true. I think we all got it. We're going to close 58%. Very good, very good, very good. All right, thank you. Nobody's getting it wrong. Yes, alignment, 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 right? Oftentimes you say sell, 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 or, we've heard about, hey, we don't care what, we'll take care of the revenue. Just you engage in the appropriate therapy, teaching, the results will take care of themselves. Or you could have the alternative, like, oh, we only care about money, so I don't care what you do, right? We've all seen those bad apples out there, but all of us are good because we're good-natured people, everybody in the room. You're taking the time. You could have done something else today, but you decided to spend the time learning some things with me, and so for that, I'm ever grateful. But yes, alignment, true is the answer, and everybody got it correct. All right, last couple slides here. As a behavior analyst, I rely on data. This is just a mock-up of some aggregated data, just some things that I'm working here on the analytics side, but any type of progress, if you want to take a more of a scientific, a data-based approach to things, everything that I've talked about today, you're gonna attach some metrics here and there. You got to measure behavior, you got to measure performance. It takes a lot of time and energy as well, but a lot of progress is going to depend on taking all of those data points. So here, right, just as a quick preview of things that we're working on down the line, right, looking at those authorizations. Hey, this is more of a results dashboard, if you will. We got 103 authorizations at this location. 84% or 84 of them are above utilization. What do those look like across consulting, parent, therapy, right? How many are below 80%? Oh, those red bars, we got to talk to those people, right? Here's a result we're looking at, a lagging indicator, a delayed consequence. How does that feed back to those other functions of process, of working with the parents, coming up with strategies, things like that? So all these pieces, right? So here, this is just authorization data, but everything very important when it comes to looking at making progress. So to wrap up here, just a couple more slides and we are finishing on time with no internet hiccups. I'm very proud of. So we identified 3 levels in BSA: organizational, process, and performer. We talked about the differences between pinpointing behavior and results when applied to your business. And at the end of the day, here's a couple action items I think you can take. Just map the systems out to give you visibility. If you've never done this before, it'd be very, very useful to go through the first time. You start discovering things. If you draw something on your board, you think about it, mull on it for a while, then you come up with new ideas. Oh, I didn't think about this process. What about this one over here? You want to identify those key processes that keep the business afloat, and then those supplementary ones that help, really give you that competitive edge. And of course, align and pinpoint those most behaviors. What you want to see. What behaviors do you want in your organization? Again, this is that culture building, high level, right? We want everybody to be on time, have a happy, smiling face, be here because we love working with the kids or the adults, whatever the setting is. And the results are, right, progress every day, transition to better environments, graduating from different programs. Aligning those pieces are going to help drive upstream the process in the macro level. So those are the action items I have for you here today. Any questions, feel free to put them in the chat somewhere so I can see them. Aaron, maybe you can help facilitate, but pop those questions in. I think we got 5 minutes, and I wrote a blog here on the Rethink website. We can share links, but leveraging OBM to enhance your practice, observation and measurement. I talk a little bit more about measurement and data here, and feel free to contact me and we'll give you the slides, and I have references at the end, but I'll leave my information there. So fire away, we got a couple minutes left. I'm happy to answer any and all questions.
Thanks so much, Nick. One question that came in is going back to some of the data that you were presenting. This feature is not live yet, correct? And the answer is you are correct. It is not live yet.
Right.
But Nick, do you maybe want to spend a minute or two just talking about what you've been doing behind the scenes at Rethink and how you've been improving our data analytics?
Oh, sure, yeah, happy to. So yeah, so Rethink's been a product for some time. We have a lot of customers that are out there that are new to the product or have been using it for a while. So really any clinical data, trial data, behavior reduction data, any of your goals, domains, those pieces, we've been looking at creating a solution, right? Specifically, it's a Microsoft Power BI approach looking at the data, so we can summarize, aggregate, give really different people in the organization, mainly right, those case managers, those BCBAs, just a high level look at, hey, here's all my kids on my caseload. What programs are they excelling at? What do they need to work on? What's a list of behaviors that are troublesome? Just at a high level, we're going to give those reports to everybody because they're well needed and they're going to be incredibly valuable. And so we're looking at just going through the course of the year and going through different versions of kind of your base reports, maybe some advanced learning analytics reports, and so on down the line. And so everybody in this work group or this support group here and various work groups are going to give us good feedback over the next year to help improve all of those analytics.
And lots more information to come on that in the next few months, so definitely look out for emails. Nick, going back to your presentation, Kristen asked, would a scorecard system be considered a process level intervention? Does it even make sense to make a distinction between the levels, since scorecards would involve all levels?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So scorecards, right, that would probably fit under, right, some type of, flip back here to, right, your super system map. Can you see the relationship map? Can you see this? Right, so they're gonna, so they're gonna fit into, right, some type of clinical, operational, maybe a performance management bucket. But then, right, you think about, okay, what are those, again, that strategy session that's beyond this talk, right? What's gonna be most important for that scorecarding system? Is it to, right, you want happy, productive, well, effective therapists, right? So that scorecard system, the effectiveness of it, one, you're going to look at the data, of course, but two, right, when you start putting that into a, when you start putting that into a process, right, if we're evaluating the effectiveness of it, that's one part of it. Hey, it could be its own function here, right, because you have to implement it, so it's, right, how would you do this? It would be the therapist engages in, right, works for 2 or 3 months, the consultant checks off behaviors, gives feedback, and then over time you can start looking at how to improve that. But so it's really hits on all three pieces, the scorecard does. So I hope that helps.
All right, it doesn't look like there are any more questions coming in at this point, but there are lots of links in your chat. So make sure you grab any of those that interest you. Just for a quick recap, if you are interested in learning more about Rethink products, the first link will connect you with one of our team members so they can let you know more. The next link is to Nick's company, BehaviorFit, if you are interested in learning more about what he's doing. And the final link that you have is to our next webinar in February. It's actually going to be on Valentine's Day. And it's the Our Next Guest series. So this one will be eligible for a CE. And Amy Gravino is going to be joining Dr. Bridget Taylor to discuss sexuality and the spectrum. So lessons on ABA, dating, and love. If you want to sign up for that, go ahead and do so. And the last link that I am sending you guys is if you have not joined our startup community and you want more access to webinars like these, resources that we share in our user group, access to our sandbox account, and just access to other entrepreneurs, you can sign up there and receive lots more resources from us. So Nick, thank you so much again. As I mentioned, everyone, you will be getting a recording and PDF of what was shared today, and we will be sure to send all of the links to you again as well. So thanks so much for joining us, and hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.